On a chilly morning, a woman arrived at a house with a child nestled in a stroller. The child, no older than a year, whimpered loudly, his cry spilling the room. In the corner, a small kitten observed the scene, its tiny head tilting in curiosity. The kitten had never seen such a small human before and was intrigued. As the adults chatted away, leaving the stroller unattended, the kitten crept toward it. He peered inside, his whiskers twitching as he sniffed the air, trying to understand the source of the commotion. But when the kitten got too close, the child, startled by the unfamiliar creature, let out a piercing scream. The sudden noise caused the kitten to leap out of the stroller, wide-eyed and confused. The women rushed to the child's side, and seeing the kitten, the child's mother angrily scolded the animal. The kitten didn't understand. He hadn't done anything wrong. Why were they so upset? The kitten had never been shouted at before, and the harsh words stung. His small body trembled as the child's mother suggested to the owner that they get rid of the kitten. "You'll have a child soon yourself," she warned. "Animals only bring dirt, and who knows what they might do." The owner, swayed by her friend's advice, hesitated but eventually decided it was best to part with the kitten. That night, the tiny creature was locked away in a cold, dark cellar, his soft mews going unanswered. Morning came and the kitten awoke to the creak of a door. The woman lifted him from the cellar. For a moment, he felt relief, thinking he would be fed and cuddled as usual. But instead, he was placed in a carrier. Panic surged through him as he was carried outside and put into the back of a stranger's car. He mewed frantically, his cries growing louder as the car sped away from the only home he had known. The car stopped in front of a large house, where loud barking filled the air. The kitten's heart raced as a young girl approached the car, her face wrinkling in disgust. "That's it," she muttered, unimpressed. The man who had driven the kitten roughly pulled him out of the carrier and dumped him on the cold ground. The kitten tried to hide, his tiny body trembling in fear. But the man grabbed him by the scruff of the neck, inspecting him with disdain before finally tossing him inside the house. In this unfamiliar place, the kitten slinked into the shadows, trying to remain unnoticed. The new owners were displeased. They had wanted a playful kitten, not one that hid. Frustrated, they left him alone, and as night fell, the man of the house went outside to unleash the dogs. The kitten, hiding under a cabinet near the front door, saw his chance to escape. Quietly, he slipped out the door and into the yard. But his freedom was short-lived. The dogs caught his scent, their barking growing louder and more aggressive. The kitten froze, his tiny body fluffing up in an attempt to look bigger, but he was no match for the large dogs. The first dog stopped, confused by the small creature's defiance, but the second wasn't deterred. The chase was on. The kitten darted around the yard, his heart pounding in his chest as the dogs closed in. His small legs couldn't outrun them, and soon, one of the dogs lunged, sinking its teeth into the kitten's fragile body. A scream echoed through the night, drawing the attention of the angry owner, who rushed outside. He shouted at the dogs, but it was too late. The kitten was limp, its body battered and broken. The woman of the house emerged, her face twisted in disgust at the sight of the injured animal. She turned away, leaving her husband to deal with the mess. Without a second thought, the man decided the kitten wasn't worth saving. He carried the injured creature to the nearby park and left him there, assuming he wouldn't survive the night. Cold and in excruciating pain, the kitten lay motionless on the damp ground. His tiny body shivered, but he no longer felt the cold. He was too weak to move, his breaths shallow and labored. As dawn broke, a young man named Alexei strolled through the park on his way to work. His eyes caught a glimpse of a small gray form under a tree. At first, he thought it was nothing, but something compelled him to take a closer look. What he found made his heart sink. A tiny kitten, barely breathing, with matted fur and blood-stained wounds. The kitten's limbs were limp, and it was clear he was in desperate need of help. Alexei couldn't bear to leave him there. He gently scooped the fragile creature into his arms, naming him Vasily on the spot, and rushed home. At home, Alexei's wife and daughter were waiting. They gasped when they saw the state of the kitten, but without hesitation, they set to work. They gently washed his wounds and wrapped him in warm towels. The kitten, now named Vasily, whimpered softly but clung to life with every ounce of strength he had. Feeding him was difficult at first, but his determination to survive was evident. He latched onto the bottle, his tiny body fighting for every drop. The nearest veterinary clinic wasn't available for another 2 days, so the family kept a constant vigil. They watched over Vasily, fearing that each breath might be his last. Tears welled in their eyes as they sat by his side, praying he would make it through the night. When the day finally arrived, they carefully transported Vasily to the clinic. The journey was stressful, and Vasily's weak meows broke their hearts. The veterinarian examined the kitten, his expression grim as he assessed the injuries. The kitten had suffered a severe cold, nerve damage, and deep lacerations. It was a miracle he had survived this long. Despite the bleak prognosis, the family refused to give up on Vasily. They transferred him to a specialized clinic where he underwent multiple surgeries to repair his damaged muscles and nerves. His tiny body was put through a grueling recovery process, but slowly, he began to heal. Weeks passed, and Vasily's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. His once dull eyes now sparkled with life, and his wounds were healing. He began to eat more, his body growing stronger with each passing day. The family watched in awe as the kitten they had rescued from the brink of death blossomed into a playful and affectionate companion. But as Vasily grew stronger, a lingering fear tugged at his heart. Would they abandon him too? He had learned that the world could be cruel and unforgiving, and he couldn't shake the fear that one day his new family might decide he wasn't worth the trouble. Yet, Alexei and his family had grown too attached to him. They reassured him with their love and care, making it clear that Vasily was now a permanent member of their family. In the warmth of his new home, Vasily found a happiness he had never known. The once helpless kitten who had been discarded like trash was now cherished and loved. He no longer feared abandonment. His new life was filled with joy, security, and the unwavering love of the family that had saved him. And in return, Vasily gave them his heart, forever grateful for the second chance they had given him.